parameters ordinance, which would allow us to move forward with the documentation and the rating and the DCD application in preparation of marketing bonds at the point in time when we receive the rating from Standard & Poor's.
Jay, excuse me, would you please take a moment just to introduce yourself?
Sorry. Peter Edelman from Stevens & Lee as your bond counsel. I'm Jay Wenger with Susquehanna Group Advisors as your financial advisor, and Chris Hoffer from Stiefel Nicholas as your recently appointed underwriter for this transaction. So the parameters ordinance puts the process in motion, does not obligate the county to anything. When we received the formal rating, as you recall, we had a rating change in June from BBB+ to A with a positive outlook. So we think that because it was done in the last 60, 75 days, that this will be an abbreviated rating review process. We certainly would expect no change in that rating, given that really nothing has changed. We haven't crossed over a fiscal year since that rating was released. That will take us about 2 weeks, so that gets us to the third week of September, which means we should be in the market either the very last few days of September or the very first few days of October, and then we can close about 30 days post-marketing date. We will come back to Jamie and you with a market update when we get to that point, just to make sure that all the assumptions are still in place so that we can move forward and hit your targets for having the financing for the Honeywell project. Again, it's a parameters ordinance, so we're not here with final numbers today. The numbers that are advertised are not to exceed numbers, so it looks like you're borrowing more at a higher rate than we actually would anticipate, but all of that is done so that we can ensure that we comply with state law provisions. And I'll let Peter comment more specifically on the ordinance if he would like to, or we can address questions.
Do you have any general comments to add?
Yeah, I would just make note that the ordinance before the board today takes all the official action required under the Local Government Unit Debt Act to authorize the financing. The ordinance will authorize the issuance of the bonds at the parameters levels that Jay mentioned, and authorize the application of the proceeds of those bonds toward the Honeywell project. And just like in the past, you're pledging your full faith, credit, and taxing power in support of payment of debt service. Pretty straightforward.
Mark, it's great. Since we submitted our proposal a few weeks ago, interest rates have come down about another 10 basis points, which is in the county's favor. So, great time to come to market for long-term borrowing.
Questions?
Yes, I do have one. Jamie very kindly forwarded a statement from Dave Warner about no conflicts of interest, so that was very welcome, and thank you for that. But I also was curious, how would an additional amount for the bond happen if the windows come to fruition? Does this one get expanded? Is there a whole new bond? How does that work?
Well, at this point, and I know that what we're referring to is potential, I guess, expansion of the project to include windows. From what I understand, Pat Salmon from Honeywell did send an email a couple of weeks ago. I think he included you in the email. I don't think that's going to, but I can't explain, the details of the energy savings that they can. I know he's planning on. Actually, he's going to be back here this afternoon.
Okay.
To meet with maintenance and some others relating to the improvements. But as I understand it, they've done their homework on that, and it still doesn't make financial sense to do. But they've developed a relationship with the vendor, and so if anything down the line would work, they've got the local vendor. I guess the project that was referred to that was a 2 or a 4 year payback was a
Aggressive.
Yeah, it was a project I think for the federal government in some way, but that's not typical of their payback. So
I thought the 7 year was the typical. That's it's been a while. So.
The last calculation they did would take much longer to pay back than any term of a bond issue would. I mean, 15 or 20 years is typical, and it wasn't anywhere close to that.
I look forward to the details because I didn't hear the details.
And I'm not as well-spoken on it as Pat is, but,
Okay. So you have no answer then to my question, though, which was how would it be handled with the?
well, it would have to be some other way of doing it, whether it be out of capital or so on, because, well, again, their numbers don't make it, so it wouldn't be an energy payback. So they wouldn't be able to fold it into their program because it wouldn't pay for itself in an acceptable amount of time. So if the county chose to still do it, it would have to come out of some other funding. I mean, this,
Well, we
could be expanded, or
Yeah,
it
we could
could-
expand the loan. We have a couple of weeks before we're going to get into the market, so you have some number of, working days to determine whether or not you want to include, I guess it's windows. I haven't heard of this before today, so I'll try to drive along here as best I can. But to Jamie's point, it would fall outside the Honeywell Energy project, so we would just have two distinct, really, contracts financed under one financing, if you want to expand it to include that. And we, again, the sooner you can determine whether or not you want to include it, the better, because we might have to re-advertise. We've advertised at $3 million cap, so if you think we're going appreciably above the $2.5 million for the Honeywell project, then we probably have to advertise again.
I thought that had been dealt with, but.
Ready for the motion? I make a motion that we instruct Jay Wenger and Associates to move forward with the bond issue with Stiefel Nicholas for the energy efficiency loan for Honeywell.
Second?
Well, do you want it to be more
His motion is the adoption.
And adopt the ordinance as presented.
And adopt the ordinance as presented.
Yeah, the parameters.
Yes. Okay.
Is there a second? Linda?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to second to accept the ordinance and the bond issue as presented. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved.